textures and structures of the sedimentary rocks. Okay, as we had in igneous rocks, there are structures even in the sedimentary rocks also, which are very important. Okay, every time the question may arise in your question papers. Okay, so today we shall see on the structures of the sedimentary rocks, and then from tomorrow we shall look on to the newer concepts in the second module. Okay, is the presentation visible? Can you see the presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now you can see I have posted some of the different types of the structures that are visible for you. Okay, these are the different type of the structures that are very commonly possessed by the sedimentary rocks. As already we have discussed, sedimentary rocks are the rocks that are formed by the process of sedimentation. Okay, so these are the rocks that are formed through the process of sedimentation. Sedimentation is a process which includes weathering, erosion, transportation, deposition. After deposition, there will be the conversions, okay, of the rocks into other, or the conversion of the loose sediments into the rocks. That process is called as a sedimentation process. So now, what are the sedimentary structures? So these are the structures which are the characteristic features of any sediment rocks, which are easily observed and also which are easily identified by the naked eye. Okay, so you can identify them very clearly without the aid of any other things. You can identify them very clearly. Okay, by your naked eye itself, you can identify them. So this is a rock, or the sediment rock is a rock which is a result of a deposition of sediments in a depositional environment. Okay, and also these rocks exhibits a variety of structures that are formed either due to the physical forces or chemical action, or also the biological processes. Okay, so coming to the types of the sedimentary structures, there are two important types of the sedimentary structures. One is a primary structure and another one is a sedimentary structure. So what is a primary structure? So these primary structures are the structures or the features of a rock that are formed at the time of the rock that is formed itself. Okay, so during the formation of the rock itself, these primary structures will be formed in them. Okay, so whenever a rock is being formed, so during the time of the formation itself, these structural features will be formed, which are called as a primary structures. So these structures will be resulting due to the action of the mechanical action or the physical process which operates at the time of the sediments. Okay, so coming to the secondary structures are those which are imposed on the rocks after the formation of the rocks. Okay, once the rock is being formed, there are certain forces like the compression, the stretching, the tension, the forces which are responsible. These have got some impacts on directly on the rocks that are being formed. So these events results in the secondary changes after the form. Once the rock has been formed, there are certain secondary changes that will be formed in the rock. So those are attributed to the secondary structures. So coming to the primary structures, you have got all these are the primary structures: stratification, lamination, graded bedding, the current bedding or the cross bedding, ripple marks, mud cracks, rain prints, tracks and trails, sole marks, scar marks, and the tool marks. Okay, so these are the common mechanically developed, which are developed due to the mechanical agencies or the physical agencies. So these are the classified and the primary structures of the sedimentary rocks. Bear in your mind, not the igneous rocks. In igneous rocks, you get the other structures. Okay, you get the laccolith, lopolith, all those comes under the primary structures of the igneous rocks. So primary structures of the secondary rocks means these stratification, lamination, graded bedding, all these comes under the sedimentary rocks. Okay, so coming to all of them, let us look at all of them individually. So what is stratification? See, stratification is a fundamental feature of a sediment rock. It refers to the way the sediment layers are arranged one above the other. Okay, so it can occur to hundreds of meters or even a millimeter scale also. Okay, here you can see how exactly the layers are being arranged one above the other. You can see one mineral rock, one raw mineral grain, upon which there is another layer, upon which there is another layer. So this refers to the series of arrangement of the rocks one above the other. Parallel alignment of rocks one above the other gives the layers like arrangement, which is called as a stratification. So very good examples are the sandstones and the limestones. If you go towards Saudati, you have seen Saudati. Whenever you visit the Saudati, you can see this stratification, very beautiful stratification pictures over there. You get very beautiful stratification pictures. Okay, you can see the layers of the minerals or the rocks arranged one above the other. Okay, so then coming to the lamination, lamination refers to the individual layers which are very thin. Okay, so it is a very characteristic feature of the fine-grained sedimentary rocks like your shale and the clay. Okay, so you can see these refers to the individual arrangements. You can see the layers are arranged one above the other in a very minute scales. Okay, so those are referred to as the lamination. Coming to the stratification, the layers will be very thick enough. Okay, so what happens in lamination? The layers will be very thin. Okay, so thickness of the layers will be usually less in lamination compared to that of the stratification. Coming to the graded bedding. So what do you mean by graded bedding? So in graded bedding, what happens is the larger fragments are usually deposited at the bottom, and the finer grains are attributed or settles on the top of the layers. Okay, so such a type of the bedding wherein one second. So what happens in a graded bedding is that, so in a case of a graded bedding, the layers, what happens is the larger fragments settles at the bottom, which allows the smaller fragments to settle to the top. Okay, so this way where the larger fragments or the coarser fragments settles at the bottoms due to the size of the grain, and the smaller fragments stacks on the top of the layer or the bed. Such a type of sequence is called as a graded bedding. You can see here the coarser grains are settled at the bottom, whereas the finer segments or the fragments are settling at the top. Okay, so this type of the bedding where the larger fragments or the coarser fragment settles at the bottom and the finer fragment settles at the top are referred to as a graded bedding. So very good example is a sandstone. Okay, so coming to the current bedding. So current bedding refers to the type of bedding where they are arranged oblique to the lines of the stratification. Okay, they are seen oblique to the lines of stratification. You can see this is one of the bed. So due to the movement of the current, This are formed oblique or making an angle to the primary bedding. Okay, such type of bedding are usually called as a current bedding. Example is sandstone. So this current bedding you can see very beautifully in the Badami caves. Okay, in Badami caves, in parts of the Badami caves, you can see this current bedding features which are very beautifully observed over there. Okay, so this current bedding usually refers to that of the movement of the water. Okay, so the water will be moving, flowing in one direction. It is unidirectional. Water flow is always unidirectional. It's not bidirectional. Okay, so water will never flow reversely. Okay, water will never flow reversely in the river or any other places. It will be flowing in a unidirectional way. Okay, so during that time, whenever the water is being flowing, what happens is the sediments are also taken away or taken along with them. Taken along with them. Okay, so that will lead to the currents flowing in one direction. Okay, the water currents will be flowing in one direction, wherein the sediments also will be flowing in the same corresponding direction. So when they get deposited, they deposit in such a way to that which resembles to the flow of the water current. Okay, so such type of the bedding where you can see is called as a current bedding. Okay, so coming to the ripple marks, so these are the ripple marks which are found from the wavy pattern or the series of crusts and troughs, or the wavy undulations that are usually found on the beaches or the sands or in the deserts also due to the wave action. You can see the air flows or the wind blows at a very high speed. Whenever the wind blows at a very high speed, which results in the formation of wavy undulations on the beds of the sands. Okay, or on the rivers also. You can see this type of the features even in the rivers also. Wherever the water will be flowing at shallow areas, if there is, if you do not disturb the shallow waters, you can see the sands will assume the layer of the patterns of the ripples. Okay, so due to the wave action itself, it is found in a miniature undulations in the sands having symmetrical cross sections. Okay, so this wavy undulations, which are usually found on a sand, refers to as the ripple marks. Okay, so this will be usually preserved. Okay, this will be usually preserved in the sandstones and the shales. Okay, so these ripple marks are also quite observed in the Badami caves itself. Okay, I have seen the Badami caves, which are very beautiful. So we keen observation features of this itself. Okay, so that's why you can find the ripple marks also. Okay, uh, okay, am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So coming to the next is the mud cracks. So these are quite observed features always. You can see whenever in a river or any lake, if it dries up, what happens is the sediments or the layers of the lake, what happens whenever the lake dries up due to the heat of the sun, the layer gets cracked up. Okay, so whenever the pool or the lake is dried up, you can see the cracks that are being observed on the bottom of the lake. Okay, the layer of the lake gets dried up due to the heat of the sun, they get cracked up. Okay, so if this preserves well in a rock, then that forms a mud crack itself. Okay, mud cracks. Coming to the rain prints, so these rain prints are the ones which are formed due to the drops of the rain. Okay, whenever the rain drops on the rock types, what happens is this drops of the water cause the impacts, or it causes the depressions on the rocks. Okay, so if they are well preserved in the rock, then they become the rain prints. Okay, so whenever the water or the rain drops fall on the rock, if it is very huge enough or very big enough, it causes some damage to the rock, it causes some depressions. Okay, if that are being observed very carefully, then they will be preserved in the rock, which gives rise to the rain prints. Coming to the tracks and trails, you can see sometimes either human beings or any animals will move along the, or any reptiles or birds, any of the organisms will move on the what you can say some water which are being logged areas. If water has been logged in an area, if it is comprising of the moisture content in the soil, then whenever a human being or any animals or organisms move on them, they cause certain footprints to be formed on the surface of the water area. Okay, so if that is being preserved, okay, when the impressions are being preserved by the movement of that animals or organisms or human beings on the soil or the rock, they form the tracks and trails of the organisms. Okay, examples are the limestones. You can find them in the limestones. Okay, so coming to here, okay, here you can see some of the amphibians which have moved. You can see structures, and these are some of the reptiles which have been moved on them. Okay, so coming to the soul marks are the marks which are observed whenever due to the filling of the depressions on the mud surface or any other rock type, right, rock types. Okay, due to the current action or by deformation due to loading or the action of the organisms also, you can find these type of the soul marks. Examples are the sandstones and the limestones. You can see these are the soul marks which are observed by the deformation. Okay, one rock upon which there is another rock deposition, and the topmost rock gets deformed due to external agencies, then there are certain formation of these soil marks. Okay, coming to the scar marks, so these are the ones which are gives rise to the flutes or another time which gets welded over the overlying sand bed. Okay, it's just like the welding of one on the other one. Okay, just to weld iron, to join two pieces of iron. Similarly, when two pieces of the rock types of different compositions are joined together by the process of welding, then these gives rise to the marks which are called as a scar marks. Okay, or the impressions. It is the scars that you can see. Generally, if you have any accident, if you fall down, you get any accident, you get the brushes or the topmost skin is being ruptured. After the formation of the new skin, even the scar remains on the skin. Okay, on that place you can see the scar that is being remaining. Okay, so similarly, whenever this happens to the rocks also, there are certain scars that are being remaining on the rock, which gives rise to the scar marks. Okay, so coming to the tool marks are the ones that are impressions which are usually leaving a tool-like surface on the surface. It is usually like the tools that are being traveling. You can see sometimes what happens is the tools, certain tools like your hammer or the thing which has been carried away, if they are preserved within the rock type, then they get preserved in the rock type to form a tool marks. Okay, so coming to the secondary structures are the ones that are most easily observed in a rock if they do not possess a primary structure. Okay, so there are two types of the primary and secondary structures. So if primary structure is not observed, then you can observe these secondary structures in a rock. One is a chemical structure and another one is a biological or organic structure. Coming to the chemical structure, so these are the chemical structures are the ones that are formed due to the chemical process like evaporation, precipitation, and crystallizations. Okay, concretion is structure. So what happens in a concretion structure is that it is a type of structure in a sedimentary rock where you can find the concretions of various shapes and dimensions. Okay, it may be rounded or it may be sub-rounded. The surfaces may be smooth, or it might look like egg of fish or anything like that. Okay, so here you can see the sizes of the concretions which are being found here. You can see the ones that are found in a rounded shapes which are very smooth. Okay, so these type of structures where you can find the rounded like ones, you can see this one is aggregation of fish eggs. It appears as a aggregation of fish eggs. Okay, piezolytic structure or the concretion structure. Such type of structures are usually called as a concretionary structures. Okay, so examples are the laterite limestones and the bauxite. So here you can see the concretion structures. Sometimes these concretion structures may be smooth or it may be rough also. Okay, sometimes it will be smooth and off, and sometimes it will be a rough structure. You can see the different sizes. The sizes are not uniform. The sizes are ununiform. Okay, so they are not uniform. They are non-uniform in nature. Okay, different sizes particles aggregates together. Okay, so coming to the nodular structure. So nodular structure are the type of the structure which are developed by certain nodules of cherts or iron oxides. Okay, or iron carbonate or clay iron stones. What happens is it is just like nodules. Nodules means it is just like gantu. In Kannada we can call it as gantugalu. Okay, whenever you do upma, if your rava is not uniformly distributed in the water, if you do not mix it well, it forms nodules within your upma. Okay, just like the upma, so these are the concretion nodules which are even found on the rocks also. Okay, ಗಂಟುಗಳು ನೀವು ಉಪ್ಪಿಟ್ಟನ್ನ ಸರಿಯಾಗಿ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಮಾಡಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಗಂಟಾಗುತ್ತೆ. Similarly, what happens is even in a rock types, the nodules can be found in the rock also. Okay, so such type of nodules which are found in the rock are called as a nodular structure. So coming to the geoid structure, so it is a hollow shell of rock in which in the interior of the rock which is which is lined by the crystals. Okay, what happens is on the top of the rock it is simply just a rock. Okay, when you break it open you can find beautiful crystals. Okay, this is example of a amethyst. Okay, or a blue sapphire. Amethyst or a blue sapphire which is usually seen. Okay, chalcedon is also example of a geoid. What happens is on the top it will be just a rock. When you break it open, when you break open into two parts, you can find the beautiful structure of the gemstones. Okay, crystal-like structure. Okay, so such type of a structure is called as a geoid structure. So coming to the biological structures, so these are the structures which are developed in the sedimentary rocks due to the accumulation of the organic material. Okay, so organic material gets accumulated in the rock and they get compacted to form a rock. Okay, so fossils, very good examples are the fossils. The fossil structures or the stromatolitic structures are described as the organic structures. Okay, you can see the fossil structures. You can see the fossils which are being preserved within the rock itself. Okay, here you can see the leaf of the plant. Okay, so the leaf of the plant which is being preserved within a rock. Okay, you can see the animal remain in the any vertebrate remain within a rock. Okay, so presence of the fossils of plants or animal life in the sediment rocks are also known to be the source of the fossils. Such type of the structures are usually called as a fossiliferous structures. Okay, here you can see the remains of certain conches or the shells. Okay, so coming to the stromatolitic structure, these are the layered rounded like sheet-like structures which are originally formed by the growth of a bacteria, cyanobacteria, which were a single-celled protein photosynthetic microbe that lives even today. Okay, so these stromatolites were responsible for the enrichment of oxygen within the atmosphere. So one time there was a lot of carbon dioxide present within the atmosphere when the earth formed, when it was at the fireball stage. Okay, so this after the fireball stage there was a gaseous stage that came into the earth. Okay, before the life on the earth, this was the first single celled protein or the cyanobacteria which was derived by the help of the protein and the iron amino acid. Okay, so amino acids were responsible for the growth of the life of the organisms on the earth. So that amino acid gave rise to a cyanobacteria which started the process of photosynthesis using the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and the sunlight. They enriched the atmosphere with oxygen. Even to today, in the parts of Australian seas, you can find these stromatolites present very widely. Okay, so coming to this significance, see, these are very important for determining the stratigraphic order in vertical or horizontal events. Okay, to determine the age of the rock, to know at what time the rock was formed, the sediment rock was formed, and what was its consequences, how it formed, it was whether it formed from wind, water, or any other process. It gives the determination. So coming to the fossils which are very valuable aids to the sedimentologist, like the sediment rocks, he maps them and uses the establish the changes in the depth of the water column. Okay, so that is how these sedimentary structures are very important. So this completes the primary structures of the sediment rocks. This is very important. Every now and then you can find them in your question papers. So if you have got any questions, you can ask me now. So we shall continue our discussion next class. Thank you. Drop in your attendances. Okay, drop in your names in the on your attendances.